Hi everyone, welcome to the September edition of Wavelength. Well, we're here on the banks of beautiful Lake LBJ near Marble Falls, Texas to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Thomas C. Ferguson power plant. The day started with invited guests from all over the region gathering to acknowledge this milestone in the history of the LCRA.
We are so proud of this facility, and it would be entirely inappropriate and otherwise just dumb to start this celebration off any other way than recognizing the men and women who keep this plant in tip-top shape on an operational basis almost 365 days out of the year. So hats off to the men and women of Ferguson.
I'm always amazed, though, when I see a facility like this that has been designed by very highly trained and competent engineers and others to build it and then operate it in a very productive and meaningful way for all of us in the state. And we're really blessed to have you all here operating it and running it for us, and I'm pleased to be here today.
Activities included bucket truck rides.
Oh, it was fun. I had a blast. That was really high, though.
There were also self-guided tours of the turbine floor and the control room. There were displays of the history and culture of the plant. And of course, a Texas-style barbecue lunch. Construction started on the plant, first called Granite Shoals Unit 1, back in 1972 and took 2 years to complete. Dedication ceremonies took place in August of 1974 and featured the presentation of a board resolution to the plant's namesake, Judge Thomas C. Ferguson.
I was in the legislature in 31 and 32.
Judge Ferguson lived in Burnet, Texas, and was instrumental in getting the Lower Colorado River Authority created in 1934. He also served on the very first board of directors and was appointed to the board 2 more times in later years. Judge Ferguson passed away in 1991 at the age of 84.
One thing that I think is unique and special about the LCRA is that as an organization, we have demonstrated the ability to honor our past as we've carried forward into the future. And I think as an organizational culture, we do that about as well as any organization in this state. And I hope that we carry that goal first and foremost into this next century. We're proud of our accomplishments. We have water in our basin for almost all of this next century that we have acquired. We have the most beautiful lakes. We have positive economic development, and we're a central part of providing electricity to this state. So our task for the next century is pretty straightforward. Just do as well as the folks who have come before us. That's our mandate, and that's really what today is all about, honoring the past and carrying that forward, hopefully being, as Marion said, good neighbors and good stewards of the river.
One thing he inherited, that boiler feed pump. And he's going to have to live with it just like we did.
Since the facility went online in 1974, there have been only 4 plant managers. Bob Keeler was first, followed by Leland Fisher, Norman Jones, and Marion Nichols.
Well, the big thing has to be when the day you started up and all the systems and operations and people you trained and everything comes together at once. It's not quite like a launch of a space shuttle, but for us it was equivalent, because this was the most modern plant in Texas at the time and had a lot of new equipment. That our computer was one of the first ones that Brown and Root had designed for a power plant, so we had a lot of things that were new and exciting.
Taking over at the plant was really pretty easy. That the 3 plant managers before me sort of set the culture, and it's been very positive, a lot of teamwork, a lot of participation, and you know, being named after Judge Ferguson, I never had an opportunity to meet him, but everything I've heard of him, some things that were said today about him, he just must have been one super individual. And our Judge Ferguson Library had a display up here, and it was interesting seeing some of the things that Judge Ferguson did in his life. So I think we're very proud to be named after Judge Thomas C. Ferguson.
This has truly been an incredibly busy year for LCRA's Water Co. division. Between the construction of water and wastewater projects to the design of a water pipeline to Hays County, and finally to the historic water agreement between the LCRA and the City of Austin, it has really been a busy year. In the coming months on Wavelength, we're going to be focusing in on these various Water Co. projects and tell you more about them. And this month, we're going to start by talking about that historic agreement between the City of Austin and the LCRA. Most any time in Texas where the conversation is about water, there's always a debate, particularly when the water costs $100 million. Here in Austin, the City Council is holding public meetings to listen to what people have to say about the proposed water contract between the city and the LCRA. The proposed $100 million water sale would assure the City of Austin a stable water supply until the year 2050. For the LCRA, the contract would allow us to pay for the recently acquired Garwood Water District and make improvements to hydro generators and the flood monitoring system. For the two entities who have been partners in many projects, this agreement seems like a win-win situation. But before the landmark proposal can be approved, there will rightfully be a full review. What you're about to see are highlights from a recent City Council meeting where all sides had an opportunity to explain their position.
I wanted to indicate that we believe that this proposal is a very important step in providing for the long-term health of our city and the region. This agreement gives us the opportunity to preserve our water supply and do the long-term planning that is vital for our future.
And if you don't step forward and commit this water, then in our opinion, we will have a surplus. And that is there for other people in the planning process to factor in on a statewide basis and see what happens. So, what happens if we don't do this deal? From the LCRA perspective, what happens if we don't do this deal is we'll pay for the Garwood water. We'll hold it, we'll identify it as available for sale, and whomever comes to us and has a way to sell it, or whatever partnerships that we reach with other people, will chart the future of that water. Today, as I stand here before you, let's assume you don't have an agreement. Let's assume you've returned to run-of-the-river rights, as the manager talked about in his presentation. Today, you have no water available to you. None. Not one drop. Today, Austin has no run-of-the-river water rights given the current weather situation available to you. You haven't had it all of this month. That means that in normal years, under today's demand, 66 days out of the year, you're out of water. If you want to know how water trades as a commodity, we sell water for $105 an acre foot. Do you know that when you go and you buy that little bottle of bottled water and you pay $1 for it, you pay over $1 million an acre foot? If you buy a 6-pack of Perrier water, you pay $3.2 million an acre foot.
I'd first like to respond just briefly and say that after Mr. Rose finished his speech, I was ready to vote for the deal. Had I not known better. I would urge the council and the mayor to look very carefully at this proposed agreement. It is extremely complicated. It has a tremendous amount of consequences to it, and it is a lot of money.
So is this future water being purchased for the citizens of Austin who pay our taxes, who pay our water bills, and who make up the great majority of the water users now? Or is it being purchased for new users in the future who will not live in the city limits? I think that this is an opportunity to discuss what is the long-range master plan for this area. And I think we ought to have some discussion about what that future looks like.
For now, the City of Austin has hired an independent accounting firm to analyze the proposed contract. They have until mid-October to decide which way to go.
It's summertime in Texas. With temperatures climbing over 100 degrees nearly every day this August, the LCRA set a new all-time peak demand for electric power by its customers 4 different times in 1 week. The new record is 2,454 megawatts, about 100 megawatts higher than the record last summer.
This time of year we're pulling out all stops. All stops meaning the coal plants, the Fed Power project is running full out. We have the gas units in a peaking mode, Gideon's units 1, 2, and 3, the Ferguson unit. We're also purchasing power. We signed agreements several years ago to buy purchase power. We are using those to the full extent that we can, and we're also running the hydro units. This time of year we don't generally run hydro, but due to the conditions that we're currently in, if you have generation, no matter how small it might be, we're going to run it, and hydro is part of the mix that we plan to cover to make sure that we can have a sufficient source of supply to serve our customers.
Lee says the record demand for electricity is a product of the hot weather and continued growth in the LCRA service area.
And the end result of it is that you and I all wind up paying more at home, and our industries and commercial buildings wind up paying more for their businesses to get the electricity. We're all going to see the highest bills that we've seen in a long time in Texas because of what's going on.
Many other electric utilities all across Texas have also been experiencing record demands for electricity.
It's often dangerous work and in the most extreme conditions. The work they perform saves lives and property and helps energize homes. On any given day, they face work conditions that most people would run away from. These are the men and women who work in the LCRA's dam and hydro section of Waterco, and they now have reason to celebrate. For the past 9 years, they have accumulated 1 million hours of work without a lost time accident. And when you think about all the things that have happened in those 9 years, the accomplishment becomes nothing short of amazing. From installing gate hoists at Wirtz Dam to rebuilding generators and managing 2 major floods, all of it without a lost time accident.
That's what's nice about being here is everybody looks out for each other. We don't want to see anybody get hurt or anything. We care that much about each other.
And then everybody's going to...
At a ceremony to honor the occasion, the 50 men and women who make up the team were praised for making safety their top priority.
I don't think you can accomplish 1 million worker hours in any organization without exceptional teamwork.
You've demonstrated that you can work 1 million person hours safely. And that's great, and that's good, and I congratulate you for that. But the more important thing is you have shown everybody at LCRA, and you have shown yourselves that you can do anything as a team. Anything you put your mind to, y'all have got the commitment to do it.
It was last year when employees from the TC Ferguson plant reached 1 million hours without a lost time accident. And in the true spirit of LCRA's One Company theme, they presented their friends on the dam and hydro team with a plaque honoring their achievement.
So this is from the Ferguson team to y'all as a team. Because we often team up together to achieve these kind of accomplishments. So thank you very much and congratulations on it.
And to help mark the achievement, each member of the team signed a banner, which will serve as a reminder to work safely every single day. One more note about this accomplishment. In the past 50 years, the Dam and Hydro Division have logged more than 4 million hours on the job with only 1 lost time accident. Now that's an accomplishment to be proud of.
Here at the Lost Pines Power Park in Bastrop County, the 3 gas-fired units at the Sim Gideon Power Plant will soon have a new neighbor. Construction is scheduled to begin in October on the new Lost Pines Unit 1, a 500-megawatt gas-fired generating plant. The LCRA, Gentex Power Corporation, and Calpine Corporation have announced plans to reduce air emissions here by installing state-of-the-art technology at the new plant. This project has received overwhelming support from the state's major environmental and clean air groups, including the Environmental Defense Fund, the Sierra Club, Public Citizen, Austin Clean Air Force, and the American Lung Association of Texas. Plans also call for upgrading existing units at the site, significantly reducing emissions of nitrogen oxides, a major component of ozone pollution. Approximately $2 million in additional funds will be spent to make these improvements.
It's really been well accepted. We think it's the right thing to do to begin with. It's not only the right thing for the business, right thing for the environment, and our environmental communities have rallied around that and have basically endorsed the new unit that we're adding, saying that they believe that it's the right thing to do too. So I think we've really done not only a good business deal, but a good environmental deal, and have really, I think, set the mark for the rest of the industry to take note of.
These measures will bring the Sim-Gideon units into compliance with the requirements of the new electric restructuring law well before the deadline in 2003. The total nitrogen oxide emissions will drop from about 2,300 tons from the Sim-Gideon plant alone in 1999 to less than 1,200 tons from the Lost Pines Unit 1 and Sim-Gideon combined in 2001.
It came to this country from Southeast Asia in the 1960s to be used as an aquarium plant. It's called hydrilla, and after someone dumped their fish tank into a lake years ago, this hydrilla began to thrive and spread throughout Texas. In 1992, here at Lake Bastrop, hydrilla covered only about 4 acres. Today, it has spread to about 500 acres. That's over half the surface of the entire lake. Of course, this thick mat of vegetation impedes navigation and recreational uses of the lake. But another primary concern is that hydrilla can interfere with operations at the power plant by impeding the flow of cooling water to the intakes. This mechanical harvester is LCRA's newest tool in the plan to manage the spread of this aquatic vegetation. Harvesting operations started on Lake Bastrop June 1st and will continue through September.
We plan to harvest about 100 acres of the 400 to 500 acres of weed in the lake. Those 100 acres are what we consider designated use areas. It's places where there's high recreational use, and in addition, in front of the intake structure of the Sim-Gideon power plant.
The harvester can cover about 1.5 to 2 acres per day, cutting off the hydrilla 5 feet below the surface. But growing back at the rate of 1 inch per day, the hydrilla can reach the surface again in just a few weeks. Harvesting the hydrilla does unfortunately have a negative impact on smaller fish.
And that's one of the things we're out here doing today, is actually trying to quantify what that collateral catch is. And so we have some biologists on hand, and they're actually hand picking through one of our hydrilla loads and counting the number of small fish and other critters that they've come upon, so that we can have some idea about just how many fish are being brought up in the hydrilla.
Surveys indicate about 200 fish, 1 to 3 inches in length, are captured in each 60,000-pound load. Presently, the cut hydrilla is loaded onto trucks and stored on land near the lake. Biologists hope that a secondary use such as compost or mulch can be found for the hydrilla. At the end of September, the LCRA and the Lake Bastrop Management Committee, which is made up of concerned citizens who use the lake, will evaluate the effectiveness of the harvester and make recommendations for the future management of Lake Bastrop.
Well, how you folks doing? It's been a while since I've seen you, but they've been keeping me so busy going to meetings. Matter of fact, the other day I was on a meeting on the way to Austin, and I got in behind this little white truck. It was kind of weaving all over the road, so I figured I better get up there and take a look and see what's happening. And sure enough, I get up there and there's this lady, she's up in the mirror. She got the paint, the powder, the pencils, giving herself a full makeover. It made me so mad. About that time she swerved over my lane, I had to swerve and darn near dropped my razor in my coffee. So this is the old Supreme Commander saying, ladies, if there's anything that needs painting out on the highway, it better be the center stripe. We'll catch you next time.
Approximately 500 LCRA employees and retirees were on hand for the 1999 awards luncheon held once again in Rockney, Texas.
You all have dedicated years of service to the LCRA, and because of your great dedication and professionalism, it's given the LCRA an opportunity to build more power, build more parks. We're helping our communities keep the river clean and be good stewards of the river, and that's wonderful. You know, you all do such a fantastic job.
Rodney is giving his $200 to the Ledbetter Volunteer Fire Department.
Starting off the ceremony, 10 LCRA employees received the General Manager's Community Service Award for outstanding volunteer service in their communities.
At LCRA, we are really very fortunate to have the management buy-in with a lot of our volunteer programs, and I think because of that, the volunteers, our employees, are willing and ready to be out there in our communities. And I'm happy to be the one that's actually coordinating all those events, because it's really nice to be out there in our public and saying, these employees are out here and they're doing a good job.
The 1999 Environmental Award went to the Thomas C. Ferguson Power Plant for their efforts in reducing air emissions and in beautifying the site by planting trees as part of their Operation Greenbelt. Ferguson employees also hold an annual Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day. The 99 Safety Award went to the Copying and Printing Center for their complete safety overhaul of their work environment.
They really started from scratch and said, look, let's look up and look down. Is the floor safe? Is it free of materials? Is there lighting, the correct lighting? Are we storing things in the right place? What do we have stored? Let's go back that way. And what equipment do we have in place to protect us? Let's make sure the protective equipment is right. So they just went every step of the process, looking up, looking down, looking around to see that safe practices were in place everywhere.
The LCRA management team once again fed the masses, featuring catfish and all the trimmings.
Where are you going to build?
General Manager Mark Rose delivered his State of the LCRA address, thanking employees for their hard work and emphasizing just how important the LCRA mission is.
You know, we're the 100% club. I mean, so much of what we do, it's 100%. I mean, and we take that for granted, but as we go forward in restructuring, look at what's happening right now. You know, and look what's happening in the state right now in the grid. A unit goes down today, it's a big deal because it's that tight. That probably gets worse, not better. There's probably more pressure for us that are in the utility business than less pressure. So we're the 100% club. The water has to be there. You know, the floodwaters have to be dealt with right, or we hear about it. Electricity has to be there. Rice farmers have to get their water when they want it, how they want it, the way they want it. There's just not a lot of margin for error in what we do. And that, I think, is one of kind of the core reasons that we are as good of an organization as we are. And I'll say it, today's a good day for bragging. We are a first-class organization. We truly are. And I think what is ahead for us is a great opportunity.
Finally, awards were presented to employees with 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 years of service to the company.
Our top story, an electric power pinch grips Central Texas. Good evening, everyone. I'm Walt Macaborski.
And I'm Judy Maggio. Austin Energy hit an all-time high in energy use today. The record was set on the same day an area power plant crashed. To make up for that loss, some Austin businesses were asked to turn off power to help conserve energy. KV24's Eddie Lavendera joins us now. Eddie, is this a sign of bigger problems in the state?
Yes, it is, Judy. Today's problem is the kind of malfunction that scares energy providers. Some of the businesses, some of the lights in downtown Austin tonight were turned off, and people were asked to work in the dark. The bottom line, a growing number of people and businesses are fighting over the same amount of electrical power, and this demand will only continue to intensify.
We've just been told that we need to conserve as much as we can.
A silhouette of Janine West is all you see when you look into her dark downtown Austin office.
We're trying to keep all the lights off that we don't necessarily have to have on, and if anybody's not working on their computer, we're turning it off and trying to do our part so that we don't lose electricity completely.
The Austin area lost about 1/5 of its power because a generator failed at a LaGrange power plant.
Because there is not a great deal of excess generation in the state, when any power plants are down, it becomes more critical.
Look like I'm getting close.
This is the state's electrical nerve center. They're busy working 2 power shortages around the state. They say these shortages could become an even greater problem for the state in the next few years. New power plants will be in place by next summer to help keep up with the record energy demand, but there aren't enough transmission lines to get the power where it needs to go.
Hopefully we'll be able to use enough of it that we can keep up with the growth.
But if you can't get to it?
Then we got a problem.
And in the meantime, people like Melissa Rougeau might find they're working in the dark more often.
It's a huge hassle. I have a lot of work that I need to do that I'm probably not going to be able to get done.
And much of what is driving this energy crunch is the population growth here in Austin and throughout Texas. Energy demand is going up about 5% a year, and energy officials tell us they're really used to seeing just about 2% growth per year. Judy?
And Eddie, we're told electrical crews will be working through the night to get the LaGrange power plant back in shape. Officials say it should be up and running again by tomorrow.
We want to tell you about the city of Austin trying to negotiate a deal that would supply you with water for the next century, but it does not come without a price. Lori Kovach reports.
Even in the dead heat of summer, water seems to be flowing all over Austin, but city leaders are looking at the broader picture.
There's not enough water for all the citizens of Austin unless the city makes some sort of agreement to purchase stored water. And we've offered them what we think is a great deal.
The deal between the Lower Colorado River Authority and the city would supply Austin with water until the next century. The current contract ends in the year 2032. Then the city would have to search for more and possibly expensive water. The new plan would supply the city until 2050 with an option to extend until the year 2100. In exchange, the city pays $100 million, $25 million up front.
In the water industry, good water planning means you look out 50 years in terms of what are your needs.
By 2050, Austin will have about 1.6 million residents who will use about 360,000 acre-feet of water. This deal will supply the city with 325,000 acre-feet.
We're not even coming close to what our needs are based on our projections, but the goal is to make up that difference through additional conservation.
The LCRA says this deal comes with quite a discount, about a $40 million savings, but don't expect that savings to be passed on to you. In fact, in the beginning, it will be just the opposite.
Because we are spending money and tying up this water for future users, then we project there would be about a 10% rate increase over a 7-year period.
Tomorrow will be the second public debate on this issue. It will be at City Council chambers and begins at 6 o'clock in the evening. We have more information on future public meetings on our website. That's at kxan.com. Back to you.
Well, that's it for this edition of Wavelength. We'll look forward to seeing you again next time.